first, my thanks to Benoit and to Finance Watch for asking the UK FSA to speak here. For those of you who don't know me, my name's Tim Rowe. I run the Trading Platforms and Settlement Policy team at the UK Financial Services Authority. And those of you who do know me will know it doesn't usually take me this long in a panel to open my mouth. But now I've got the opportunity, so I'll go for it. I guess what I wanted to say was this. Our panel's entitled Market Structure and Technology, Who Benefits? And quite a lot's been said about market structure, so I'll focus a little bit on the technology side instead. And what it strikes me as my kind of opening comment is, when we say technology, we're talking about something which is so extensive, it's such an expansive concept, that when you say who benefits from technology, you haven't even established a premise on which to have that kind of debate. It's clearly not the case. It's clearly not the case that technology and HFT are the same thing. Not even close. It's also not the case that technology necessarily leads to an arms race, or that there has to be an arms race the moment you introduce technology to markets. Technology these days is indeed used for things like order generation, and the sending of orders to markets, and the receipt rapidly of information, and the analysis of that information. But you can use technology for slower forms of order entry, for slower forms of analysis, fundamental analysis. You can use technology, and I say this as a former venues person. I used to work at the London Stock Exchange, and now working at the FSA. You can use it for surveillance. You can use it for controls. You can use it for controls if you're Remco, or any of the other guys here who are from the industry, or if you're a venue, or if you're a regulator. There are lots and lots of different ways of using technology. So when we say who benefits from technology, you've got to kind of ask the question, well, what technology are we talking about? What do we actually mean? Why am I telling you all this? The reason I'm telling you this is when you look at the propositions that we have, the kind of proposals that are kicking around the MiFID II debate, around what should be done around technology, minimum resting times for orders, maximum order to execution ratios, things like interventions around tick sizes, things like interventions around fee structures. The first question I always want to ask is, we seem to have come up with some solutions here, but nobody's actually yet defined for me what a problem is. And if the problem is technology, then I'll go back to my initial point, which is, tell me what you mean by technology. Tell me what the issue is. Tell me which bit of the technological framework that we have, which makes up our markets now, is the thing that's bugging you. Because until you do that, you've got a fundamental difficulty in saying, well, then the route forward has to be this way and not that direction. So that's my opening gambit, is to say, well, let's work out actually what we're talking about here. What's the problem here? It seems to me from the research that I've seen that when you look at HFT, to come back to what was, as Remco said, supposed to be one of the themes of this panel, you can actually see good and bad. You can see spreads tighten if you care about spreads, and if you trade in small sizes, you probably do. You can see order book depth increasing, but you can see differences, asymmetries, depending on whether we're in stress market conditions or more sanguine periods. You definitely have differences across instruments and asset classes. So we have to look at all these different moving parts to work out actually, well, is HFT good or is it bad? What's it actually doing in any given market? Because, as you say, you go to India, it doesn't even exist. So the role of HFT differs. As far as I can see, on the whole, it's probably beneficial for markets around spreads, around depth, around liquidity, if the markets are sanguine. When we come to stress periods, it's more complex. I think that's definitely the case. But that relates to another point I want to make, and that is, when we talk about HFT, we have to accept the fact it is not a trading strategy. It is not now, and it never will be. What HFT does is it allows you to do old trading strategies, some of which have existed for hundreds of years, at a different sort of speed. So when we start knocking HFT, might be fair enough. Might be reasonable if somebody's using high-frequency technology in order to abuse the markets. Maybe they are front-running in the genuine criminal sense of that word, and I agree with you, Mark. I hate the use of front-running as a phrase when we don't actually mean it in that legal sense, because that blurs things and makes it a motive. So if it's used for front-running, that's bad. If it's used for gouging people, that's bad. If it's used for market making, and there are market makers, IMC is one of them, that are official market makers in certain instruments on certain markets, well, generally speaking, don't we think that's good? Isn't that one of the things that the Commission and others have written into the new MiFID proposals, that we will encourage liquidity provision? Kind of depends which faculty of HFT you're looking at as to whether it's good or bad. So just kind of think it takes a little bit of time to pause there and think about that. One thing I do just want to mention finally, though, is something that Thierry brought up, and that is the need for research. Huge amounts of research being done on HFT, and the body of work is increasing, so is the body of work on technology generally and its impact on markets, and that's got to be a good thing. It's important that we read it, it's important that we take it for what it is. I've heard people talking about the foresight work that's being done and being sponsored by the UK government and saying, oh, well, it's coming out of the UK, it must be, it must be biased, it must be based with the good of London in mind. Let me tell you, as someone who's been involved, albeit tangentially with that work, nothing could be further from the truth. That is genuinely independent research that has been commissioned from academics. It's not supposed to be something which is there to promote the UK. It's supposed to be something which promotes the debate, and that's a fundamentally different thing. So we do need more research. I agree with Thierry that it would be useful to look at costs, look at social costs of technology, and at what point we might look at the markets and say, well, this has gone too far, we've got too much technology now, although that is an incredibly difficult thing to do. And there are other ways technology can be used for the advantage of regulators. I like the idea of being able to see more data. I like the idea of us being able to see pre-trade data combined across markets. I think it's incredibly difficult to do unless somebody here knows more about technology than I do, and I guess that's probably everybody in the room. But if you can see data combined from markets, I think that would be extremely helpful. That would help regulators. But I think one of the challenges is, can you do that sensibly? Can you pull that information together so you can get a genuine view across markets on a timely basis and at a price which isn't going to bankrupt the industry for the second time in the last 5 years? So I think that's really kind of my main points. I've got a whole stack load of stuff I've scribbled down on my bit of paper here that really kind of comes back on points that people have made, relating everything through to can issuers see who's investing in their instruments, to should BCNs be allowed, should OTFs be allowed. Perhaps we can pick that up in the debate, because I'm conscious, as I said, that Laurent's probably kind of pouring at the door. So they're my opening comments. Thank you.
No, we still have some time anyway, but would you agree on, you discussed surveillance? Mm-hmm. And would you agree it's important in MiFID 2 to put the balance between the cost of surveillance, even if it's technology and so on, still have a big cost in resources as well, and some other measures who would actually disincentivize some of the abusive practice at the source?
Yeah, there's quite clearly got to be a
and which measures do you see, that would actually disincentivize market abuse?
I think it's incredibly difficult to tell. I had this conversation on a panel a few months back, and somebody said to me, the cost of building a pan-European pre-trade surveillance system would be about $1 billion. I don't know what that was based on, but that's what he said.
Can I take that contract?
Yeah, actually, I'll take that contract. And he said, but total market abuse in Europe at the moment totals $13 billion per year. I'd love to know where he got that figure, because I work at a regulator and we've got some pretty impressive data, and I know my friends at the AMF have as well, and I have no idea where that figure comes from. If it's accurate, wow, that's pretty scary. Mm-hmm. Does it mean that if I had a single pre-trade view of the whole market, I could eradicate it all? You bet your bottom dollar I couldn't. I mean, there comes a balance point, I think, where we need more data, we do need more information, the speed of trading, and frankly, more importantly, the evil intent of some people. And technology doesn't necessarily create evil intent. Evil intent's been there forever. Is sufficient that regulators do need high-quality technology. Does that mean we need, say, ESMA to have a pre- and post-trade combined surveillance capability based down in Paris? I really don't know. But there's a balance there somewhere.